I guess that's me. Hi, everybody. Welcome back from the break. The brave, the proud, get your snacks, come back in. Yes, so I'm Elizabeth Shea, and I'm the founder of a company called TreeFork Strategies, and we're a consultancy that helps business owners scale. And so one of the reasons that I think I'm here today is because a lot of our clients are venture-backed, private equity-backed, investor-led, and so I'm very excited to moderate a panel. We have one more person that might be coming in, might be flying in, no pun intended, because this flight is late. But this is a panel about basically what are investors looking for today. You know, our investors are oftentimes the canary in the coal mine. So how do they look at what's real, what's in the future? And so we're going to start a lively discussion today. We'll go for about a half an hour. All right, I will stop talking and turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Momi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Momi Q. I'm a managing director at PSP Growth. We're the venture arm for PSP Partners, which is one of Penny Pritzker's private investment groups. And we focus on investing in AI and technology companies, Series B through pre-IPO, so a little bit on the later side. One of the things that's unique about us is we do look for the most cutting edge AI technologies that we can find in terms of product and talent, but our DNA is really in older line, more traditional industries. So the Pritzker family, as you may know, the founding family behind Hyatt Hotels, Marmon Group, we're based in Chicago, where there are many traditional corporations that are still learning about AI, and our goal is to find the most promising technologies that have real world AI use cases.
Go ahead, take it away, Janet.
My name is Jane Eve. Thanks for having me. I'm from Sanif Venture Studio. I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm also co-leading one of our portfolio companies, Philoquo. And our approach is more than investing cash. We invest in not only cash, but also hands-on resources in validation and product development. We work together with domain experts who already have like many years of experience in their domain experts, in their domain, in their verticals, but they don't know how to turn their domain knowledge and pain points that they observed into product, into AI product especially. So we work alongside with them and invest into them. So we will cover more about our approach, like about our customer day approach and our AI perspective of things later in this panel. Thank you.
That's terrific. And if our third panelist joins us, he literally is probably running through the airport right now, screaming through the Venetian. So his name is Ryan, and he was brought to the panel because he represents very early stage companies. And so we have basically a person representing early stage companies, and then we have Jane who comes in at the startup level, pre-seed, often to Series A, and then later stage companies, growth companies with Momi. So let's talk about the fact that 2 years ago it was about AI is going to change everything, and wow, it's going to take away jobs and all these other things that were part of the narrative. So the narrative has changed in the last just literally 18 months or so. So can you talk about a little bit what that looks like today? And I'm going to start with you, Jane.
Well, it does change everything, actually. Right now, I wear multiple hats, like from investor to actually operating in a startup. I do see the difference. Like nowadays, like VC or investor need to reimagine the whole valuation model. Like what does it mean? These resources got injected into our portfolio companies. Is it just about product development, or is it more about go-to-market, right? So, but from the operator of a startup perspective, I feel like you no longer focus on building product fast, but how your unfair advantage lies into your connections, your domain knowledge, and how to build trust in your industry, right? So one of the examples is actually the portfolio company I'm working together with. That is a government-backed loan industry. Is so underserved, even like from the outside, people think, oh, the market of AI product in that industry is so crowded, it's so packed. But like when we interview like more than 20 of them, like internally, those are the chief underwriters, those are the chief producers, they are the C executive. They feels like they're stagnant by at this time, even though they have the latest, they have access to the latest AI models, they have access to the latest AI platform, they have the tools, but they still feel stagnant. They cannot leverage the AI enough to make the difference, to make the business value visible, right, to the board, to their stakeholders. So I believe there are so many more verticals facing the same situation. So that's why we encourage, our studio encourage more of those domain experts. If you have the trust and you have the networks and understanding of the pain points of your industries, come talk to us.
For it.
Sure. Well, I think in some ways this is part of the natural evolution if you think of AI being the newest technology wave. So what you're seeing happen, and we're still seeing that happen in the industry now, which is not necessarily a surprise, because I think the question was phrased more as a surprise. Like 2 years ago, we see this big wave, and now what happened? And in my mind, I think it's naturally progressing. What I mean by that is you're seeing the infrastructure side of this AI technology being built. So you hear the parallels being drawn that if this is the next revolution, so think of railroads, right? And this is the railroads of AI being built. So you are seeing continued massive investments in data centers, in the CapEx. The bottlenecks are in memory and in power, and the earliest winners of this technology wave is the models, in some ways the inference providers on the software layer. And now that you are building really this foundation, people are looking up and be like, so where are the users, right? We've built the foundation, and where are the users, when are they gonna come? And I think that's the question that we're answering right now, which is the users takes a little bit of hand-holding. So many large corporations are hearing from their boards that if you don't keep up with the latest AI wave, you're going to be left behind. Find some business use cases, any business use cases, and demonstrate that you're using AI, demonstrate your employees are testing all these models and know how to use these models. But in reality, as we all know, there's a lot of us, I think, in corporations here, to really adopt a new technology, you need a pain point, you need a use case, you need an ROI. And I think that's where we're still catching up as an industry. I don't think we overshot it, and now we're kind of wheeling our way back. I think that we're still just building up that muscle as part of this learning in AI.
No, I do think that is typical that, I mean, this is not, this is another wave that's taking place, and then there's the reality of what's real in the business community. And so I'd like to touch on a little bit from the standpoint of what you see within the companies that you're currently represented. You all take somewhat of an operator role within those organizations, correct? So that means that you're in on the trenches. You're not just writing a check. So where are some of the struggles when you're working with companies on creating adoption of the technologies that you're representing? Does that make sense? Yeah. So you want to start, Jane?
I will take that first. The repeated theme of the challenges that we witness is that in enterprise, especially for those who are part of our clients, the executive, the high level, they have a really ambitious goal of implementing AI. Right? Like we gotta have like 10x capacity. Like we're not replacing human, but like we gotta increase our capacity, right? And then implement more than 50% of the adoption rate internally, right? They set a really high standard of the goals. But when it comes to daily routine, they open up all the access to the employees, to their teams, but the teams won't have the time to actually, who actually have the domain expertise, they won't have the time between deals or between projects to actually implement the AI. So that's why I feel like token maxing of course, it's a great strategy for past few months because nobody know how to measure the impact of AI implementation. But right now, like my approach is more like bottom up instead of just top down, right? Instead of just having a really big vision, like how to implement in a visible, with the visible impact on daily workflow. So that's what we, our day-to-day task is actually inside our startup is actually talk to those, let's say the underwriters, originators in our clients' companies, sit down with them, and then go through the actual workflows, not the imagining the ideal workflows, right? You know, like deals are different deals are like they have all sorts of nuances that AI agents cannot easily comprehend, right? So that's our day-to-day task right now for our portfolio companies, and then like we aim to bridge that gap between the high big goals from the executive to the daily working force workflow. So that's our approach.
I think one of the challenges that we see and try to help our companies as well as our corporations go along is the promise of AI, especially when you look at some of the valuations of these early stage companies that are being funded. Just to give a perspective, if you look at the Forbes AI 50, which is somewhat a proxy for the next generation of promising high profile AI companies, all of them are valued at $1 billion or more. So that's the cost, right, to enter these companies if you make a new investment today, which means the promise of those companies has to be multiple billions, maybe $1 trillion. These companies are looking at OpenAI and Anthropic's market caps and saying, now the hurdle, if I want to build a successful AI company, is $1 trillion, which is what's prompting up all the valuations of these early stage companies. So you have to think about what has to happen for it to be true. It has to capture and replace more than just existing software budget. The global software budget today in totality is about $1 trillion. So now you have individual companies trying to be valued at that. So the only way that math can work is if now AI is capturing headcount budget. And with the promise of, yes, you're probably spending $5 on my quote unquote AI software versus $3 you were spending on normal software before, but we're cutting out $10 worth of headcount people budget, so your overall bottom line is still more profitable. So that's the promise, right? And that's why people look at it as the North Star. That's why people want to use these AI technologies. But replacing a headcount, it's a lot of, that's a big change. That's a culture change, that's an org change, that's a business plan change. So I think in reality, we're now stuck in this phase, this middle phase, where the companies are just bringing on costs when they're bringing on these AI technologies, and they're not really replacing headcount, where if they are, they're cutting heads because they were going to cut heads anyway, and AI is really just a reason they can use to say we're being more efficient. And so I think the day when companies can now, we're seeing some of that, but I think it's still early, the day that companies can grow faster with AI by not increasing headcount, that's when you're seeing some of this true exponential ROI start to come in play. And again, I think green shoots of that, but not like fully baked in yet.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating to just watch the transformation that's taken place in a very short period of time. So let's get to some brass tacks with the canary in the coal mine mentality. So let's start with you, Momi. What do you get excited about? What kind of technologies are you seeing? You probably get so many companies that are talking to you about investing. Like, what are some of the areas where, wow, that's a really, truly deployable solution, and this is where I think we can make a difference?
Yeah, so I think some of the most exciting solutions I've seen actually sounds pretty boring when you describe it.
Okay, boring's good though.
but because they're solving real problems, right? So back to the, my perspective is we're still early in terms of proving this ROI in real use cases, but when I see them, I get really excited. And one of our recent investments that we just made this year is a company called Freehand. They're in the supply chain finance field, where think of the very boring logistic invoices every time you ship anything, both inbound or outbound, right? So if you're Apple, and all the invoices that you get from getting the parts, all the invoices that you send from selling out the parts, each one is a human matching and making sure the numbers tie, and of course there's human errors, and then you outsource the human labor to someone maybe not even less dependable. All that should be automated by AI, so these people can do higher level, more interesting work. Like sitting there and matching data is something that technology should be doing. So every time I see a company like that, that's really automating away things that people don't want to do, I get excited. Maybe a slightly more exciting company, but in concept, but still touches on the same efficiency and automation piece is another company we invested a couple years ago called Synthesia. So if you go on Synthesia's website, it looks like an AI avatar company, which we've seen many of them pop up over the last couple of years, but they're one of the only ones who were able to crack the enterprise sales motion, which says a lot because you need compliance, you need enterprise readiness, you need security and all of that. But so they nailed all that down, but what they were able to do is they started in learning and development. So think of all those training videos that you have to do every year to be in compliance. Those are real actors, real budgets, real videos being shot, even though sometimes you really replace one word for next year's session. And this is all automated and done by avatars. You can change the language, you can change the look of the avatar, you can change the scenes all instantaneously. And now they're shifting to all kinds of different corporate use cases where, for example, you are in sales and marketing and you want to practice your sales pitch with a client. There are now interactive avatars that you can train with instead of training with an actual human, because that makes it a lot more scalable. So it's pretty cool, and you can create your own avatar. I have my own avatar that I think presented my last investment case, so that's another example.
That's very cool. Jane, what gets you excited when companies come to you? Because you're really early stage. So
really early stage.
It's got to be a big idea, right?
Yeah, I'm in the frontline trenches of the startups. So I got really excited when two loops are closed. The first loop is when one of our clients are able to turn meeting notes with the borrowers into action item and actually executing them, right? Like from meeting notes with the borrowers, like how to change or modify the financial modeling. That is unheard before, because like every financial model decisors are different for different underwriters, for different lenders, right? So the first loop, like able to close that, like from meeting notes to action item to actually making changes. And then the second loop is actually, it's also very boring. That is, I got daily morning to-do list curated by AI. Right? My AI read all my meeting notes with clients, with startups, with my co-founders, and then list out all the sales pipeline progress, and then it would draft emails and proposals, like the first draft for me at 9 a.m. when I'm ready to work, right? So it's more like acquiring a junior staff or any level of staff to put the first draft first, and then I just review it before I send it out. So it got pretty good. It sounds like myself. It sounds like the tone that I needed it to be. So that's the two loops I feel really excited about when it happened.
No, that's very cool. We love to hear the real stories. So, you're giving out money. You're handing people a check. And you're getting involved in that business. And so I imagine with all the pitches that you see, what part of those pitches stands out to you where you can say, this is the real deal versus all the hype that's out there? So what are the magic words? I mean, there used to be a lot of magic words, but what are the magic words today that you want to be able to hear in terms of being defensible for being a justified investment, because you have limited partners to subscribe to? So we'll start with you, Jane.
Right, like after hearing more than a year AI pitches, the magic word to me is I've talked to customers, potential clients, and they are underserved, right? Like, because in enterprise AI solutions, the startup gotta face that one question, like, if you can vibe coding this, why can we not, right? Like, why the AI team or the expertise in the enterprise clients, they cannot build the software themselves, right? So, so when I hear lots of like good, of course, good idea, good startups, pitches, but if they are not actively talking to clients and getting the insight from the pain points, and they have, if they are not getting like trust from the potential clients, that allows the clients telling them the real pain point is, then I would just think it's just a hype, or it's just another nice looking pitch.
Right. So Mome, your clients are different. Your portfolio companies are later stage, so they're probably having to be very defensible on what they're providing. What are those things?
So certainly at our stage, we have the benefit that we can see some of these enterprise deployments and ROI that I mentioned earlier. So where I shift my attention to during these pitches is, do you have a right to win? I don't necessarily ask what is your moat today, because I think it's actually very hard to have a moat, real moat in AI today.
Everyone talks about the moat, right?
It's you see the model capabilities leapfrogging one another every few weeks, right? And whatever lead you have, that is kind of your current moat, is your current lead. So I look for signs that what is your right to continue to leapfrog others? What is your right to continue to stay ahead? And that could come in a few different forms. That can come from talent, that can come from product, and that can come from distribution. So talent, right, I look for very specific things. It's not just staring into the founder's eyes and asking if you're ambitious, because everyone has that right now. It's examples. I recently had a company that we invested in. The CTO was like the founding brains behind the new technology that they built, and he literally had a pipeline from his universities of students studying under him that is feeding to the company. So like that kind of talent right to win is what I'm looking for. I think distribution is real. Once you found a way to be entrenched in these enterprises, yes, your technology has to stay ahead, but you have an edge because the enterprises already trust you. And even though we're in the world of saying AI disrupts everything, enterprise trust and embeddedness is still really important. And then lastly, as I mentioned on the product, are you actually building the product differently? There used to be more variations of this. I think today a common one is, are you quote unquote AI native? Did you build this with new architectures? Are you rid of your tech debt from before, or are you really like a thin layer on top with AI orchestration? So those are some of the things that I look for.
No, that's very interesting. So if you fast forward, let's say 18 months to the future, since that's sort of the time frame we've been operating within, who do you think are going to be some of the types of companies that will win? This is kind of a continuation from what you were talking about before, but like, can you help paint a picture for if someone's in that arena? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say 18 months. And I do think it's pretty precise to be that, because I think in 5 years it might be a little different, and
right.
you know, things, the enterprise side and the application layer will catch up. I think in 18 months, some of the big winners is still going to be on the infrastructure side. As enterprises figure out, some will be a little bit further ahead than others, but some will still be in experimental phase. So the layer of inference companies, right, as AI shift from model training and development to actually production level AI, there's a layer of companies. We're investors in some of them, so I'm thinking companies like Together AI, FAL, Base 10, Fireworks, those group of companies that are leveraging open source models and really having day zero access to the newest models and helping you triage your requests. So directionally, what that means is if you have a small request, you only really need a smaller, cheaper model. You don't really need the most expensive one, and they help you optimize that. And I think the reason I think those companies will be successful is the next phase will be a lot of focus on cost. And that's really what it takes to have AI grow into more of a maturity curve. Enterprise adoption, there's only so much you can speed that up. I think people will adopt at the pace that they adopt, but you can keep the cost down, and that will also help with adoption. And so inference cost, controlling that, right, I think you mentioned tokens before, those will be top of mind in the next 18 months.
Jane, before you answer that, I think I'm going to pivot a little bit for you just to ask, what companies would you like to see? Like, since you're early stage, I mean, are there some out there that you think it hasn't even been invented yet? It's not even the concept. Are there industries that you think, wow, this would be really cool?
Well, we're a vertical. Vertical doesn't matter to us. Like, as long as you have the access to that domain and you have the trust of those decision makers, those are the domain experts we're looking for, because we're working with a really early stage of the startups, right? So, like, instead of looking at the tech or looking at even the product itself, we are more focusing on do you really have the access to the decision makers of those industries? So we would love to know more about, we'll love to, hey.
Hello, Ryan.
Yeah.
We got you mid-sentence. We're going to put you on the spot in a second.
You can monologue for the last 5 minutes.
That's awesome. That's exciting. Yeah, we were talking about what kinds of startups we would love to look into more. So, like, domain expertise, access to an industry, and they are eager to solve their pain points in that industry, right? And if they don't have the skill set of building a product, we could help. We could provide the resources, the knowledge, the know-how to build it. But at least, like, you gotta have that insight from the industry first. Actually, like, instead of demo day, our final milestone for our incubation is actually a customer day. Like, show us not just your demo, not your pitch deck, but the real insight of from talking to your potential clients, right? Even though your initial thoughts of ideas is not, like, actually 90% of the initial ideas from the domain experts always, like, wrong. They have wrong assumption on the pain points, but after talking to those potential clients, like, they pivot and then iterate the product, and that's the startups, the kind of startups we would love to see more.
That's exciting. Well, welcome, Ryan. Like I said, so we've been just talking about, like, what in the future would be technologies that you might be invested in, and since you're your early stage frontier technologies, if you will, maybe just a quick description about your introduction of yourself, but then get into the answer to the question.
Yeah.
What's hot? What's going to be big for us?
Definitely. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Wang. I have been working as a venture capitalist based in Silicon Valley for the past 11 years.
And there's the time clock, by the way, so we can watch that.
Investing in multiple different funds, but most recently, I've been managing Solaris Venture Partners, which is a early to growth stage fund focused on physical AI and robotic investments. And our thesis is really, AI has been making huge impact in the digital world, right? But then when we are looking forward, the next chapter is really how AI is getting to the physical world and making in real life impact as well, right? So for that, with that kind of thesis, we invest in robotics. That's one of the hottest sector under physical AI. But it's not only just robotics, right? We look into the supply chain side of things. We look into how these components, actuators, drivers, motors, where are they being made? Especially recently FCC announced a new ban on foreign humanoid and robotics products, right? So I think the moat is not only on the technology, on the software layer, but also it get enhanced and emphasized so much on the hardware and the supply chain layer in the next few years. And aside from robotics, we also look into, for example, edge AI, right? How we can make the models not only smarter but smaller, so that we can deploy on these edge devices, right? And we can have more fast responding and applications, especially for those kind of latency sensitive applications as well. We look a lot into some other sectors such as word model, right? How can we build intelligence that can represent the causality and the physics in the real world, in addition to like translating everything back to the language layer, right? So I think large language model has gone such a long way, and in the digital world, AI is doing pretty good. But for physical AI, everything's just getting started, and that's at the end of the day, that's why it excites me the most.
That's very cool. Okay, thank you so much for making it here, and we literally flew in. Okay, we don't have that much time left, so I'm going to do a rapid fire question where I'm putting our panelists on the spot. So in 5 years, what's one thing that you're going to insist that humans want to do for yourself? Humans want to do for themselves. What do you think, Momi?
I think any kind of event planning, right? We already see sports as one that people feel is like almost anti-AI. But I think I like to plan a lot of events like this, parties, like social stuff, work stuff. Those are the things that we still want to do.
It's not outsourced to AI. Excellent. Okay, Jane, real quick, how would you answer that?
Can I have the question again? Sorry.
Oh, so yes, what's one thing that you think humans are going to insist on doing themselves and not outsourced to AI?
Not AI, probably chores. I was just discussing with one of the attendees here, like the robots can dance right now, but not doing chores. So yeah, probably chores. Like I feel like AI now can do most of the paperwork, and I'm trying to clone myself in AI to make judgment faster. So when it comes to like not able to assist by AI, probably chores right now. I would love to see that.
Well,
real
many
quick
things, right? Cooking, cleaning. I'm kidding. I'd rather robots do all that kind of stuff. One thing I think will never get replaced by AI or robots is taking responsibility, right? If you think about professions like accounting, legal, this kind of stuff, at the end of the day, it's a human need to take accountability and take responsibility for the result of a project. Right, so I think for any kind of project, we can say, hey, we are running all these like agent armies and in the future robot armies to get things done. But at the end of the day, whoever is in charge need to be responsible for the consequences. So I think taking responsibility is something I don't even see a path on how these kind of things can be replaced or take over by any kind of like non-human type of structure.
It's good food for thought for all of us in the room. Thank you very much to our panelists. I appreciate everybody coming here today. Thank you.
Thank you.